The Corpus Christi airport saw an increase in traffic over the week as lots of people were traveling to and from our community. Our local health director says they understand that people are growing tired of not being able to see loved ones. However, traveling is still considered a high-risk activity amid the pandemic. Now, for those who did travel recently, Health Director Annette Rodriguez says they should take precautions once they return home.
Monitoring yourself, checking your temperature, making sure that you're not starting to feel like you have a headache or shortness of breath or any of those things, because if you do, you could have picked up COVID-19 when you travel, and then you could actually just spread it here as well.
And Rodriguez says that if they are able, travelers should quarantine while waiting to see if any of those symptoms show.